Welcome everyone to the 6th round of the UZChess Cup 2025. We have Arjun Erigaisi, the India #1, coming on, and the clocks have started. Shakes hands with Javokhir Sindarov, and this is going to be a huge encounter. We have a lot of photographers and videographers in Tashkent who are trying to make sure that this tournament reaches more and more people, because after all, it's one of the strongest tournaments in the world. Let's see how Arjun plays. He's half a point behind the leader. Sindarov also playing amazingly well in this tournament. He's beaten Nepomniachtchi and Richard Rapport, and now he's playing against Arjun. You can see how Arjun has made his move but has not pressed his clock. Adjusts everything, adjusts the clock and presses. Sindarov, now what will be his move here? He goes pawn to d5 and Arjun comes back. Well, you could very well play c4 here. Yes, Arjun goes for it. No London system business here for Arjun. e6 played. Queen's Gambit declined. Knight comes out to f3. It's always very interesting how from well-known lines the play develops in a game of chess, and the style of the player dictates the kinds of positions that we would be having. We have the semi-Slav on the board, and now bishop goes to g5, pinning the knight. The knight comes out to d7, and he's gone for the more safer option, cd5, because generally d takes c4 or h6 followed by d takes c4 are sharp lines, but knight d7 is not a very sharp line. It's just a very stable option. ed5 played here. So we have this very famous Carlsbad structure here. Carlsbad, because that was the place in which this structure was played initially, where white has more pawns in the center, while black has a more majority on the queen side. Now, queen a5 is an interesting move. He's pinning the knight on c3 and he's wanting to come to e4, attacking here and the bishop. Arjun goes bishop d3. Very interesting chess by Arjun, because now knight e4 is possible, and I believe Sindarov might do that. Yes, he plays knight to e4. He's attacking the knight here on c3, and well, what to do? Do you want to give up your bishop? But then I take, and then this is hanging. Oof, he goes castles. What? Arjun's ready to give up a pawn here. If you take, well, this is very risky business as the position opens up with the king in the center. He takes the bishop. Knight takes bishop now. Getting exciting. Getting exciting. So knight g5, he plays his knight to f6. And pawn comes up to f4. So white has built a nice structure here, and I think Arjun might be in his prep somehow. Black has a nice position, double bishops, but one thing is missing. Black is slightly behind in development. Also, the queen is a bit offside. But Sindarov very quickly castles here, and he's saying to Arjun, what's your plan, my friend? What is it that you want to do? I believe what Arjun wants is he wants to reroute his knight to the center. Oh no, not really. He wants to come at the king. He's coming in. Guys, look at this. Pawns here. Maybe he will switch his queen here. He'll put a lot of pressure on h7. Arjun is really a dangerous player. By the way, he took close to 20 minutes, 25 minutes for that last move g4. So it was a very calculated decision. Comes back, brings his knight. So yes, this rerouting is happening. So once the knight is settled on e5, it really sort of binds the center together. And knight comes back to e8, because knight d6 with the idea of coming into the center. Queen c2 played, putting pressure on the g6 pawn. And now knight to d6 played. Maybe it's time to just jump in. Knight e5. No, queen goes to g2. A very exciting position is developing, and more so because both players want to play exciting chess. They want to fight. The queen goes back to d8, and I think mainly Sindarov didn't want h4 to happen, but Arjun anyway goes for it. If you take the pawn, g5 traps your bishop, so you have to be careful. h4, king goes to h8, so that if h5, you can take, and suddenly it's your queen that is in trouble. Arjun tries to run with his king on the other side, but this is falling with a check. No, he goes h5. What a move by Sindarov. He's like, if you take here, I'll still take. I'm okay with my king opening up because I get the file. Wow, knight e5 played by Arjun. Super quick play here by both players. Knight jumps in, and now Sindarov can actually take here. King e2 and hg4. If you go rook h1, there's king g7. He's doing well, but instead he takes on g4 with the bishop. What a crazy position Arjun has managed to create here. Knight takes g4. H takes on g4. And now queen takes. And still bishop h4, king moves, king g7 with the idea of rook h8 is not a bad idea, but Sindarov goes for the queen trade. He just wants to get the queens off the board because he doesn't like his king being put under fire, because Sindarov is one of those players who loves to attack. And when his king is under attack, he doesn't like it. Arjun comes back. Queen g2. He wants to keep the queens. He wants to swivel the rook to h1. Push h5. Queen comes right into the center, and Sindarov says to Arjun, you too have weaknesses, my friend. e3 is weak. Rook h1 played by Arjun, not caring for Sindarov's idea. h5 is coming in. And now the rook, which is sleeping in the corner, is brought into the game. Rook e8. And Arjun goes rook h3. So doing dual roles, defending as well as attacking. Knight jumps to f5. Still putting more pressure. Do you want to trade the knights? Maybe not right now. Rook h1 played, threatening h5. And king comes up to g7. Well, I guess it's time to go h5, isn't it? But there is a check followed by some problems here. So can't do this right now. He goes knight d1. Arjun also has to think about defense. But what is knight h4 by Sindarov? Isn't he giving away 2 pieces for the rook? Arjun is like, for exactly this move, I defended e3 with my knight. Now I can take. So that when you take and I take, you can't take here on e3 because my knight is there. So Sindarov actually didn't feel very comfortable, and he wanted to clarify the situation. But in return, he has gotten into trouble now. f5 is a very powerful move, but Arjun takes the rook. Not so sure if that was best. f5 would have given Arjun a great position, but take. And now this position is worthy of deeper introspection. King comes to e2. Who's better? The bishop and the knight, or the rook and a pawn? And you can see Sindarov very quickly wants to get the queens off the board, because he realizes that with the queens on board, his king is more likely to be in trouble. In the end game, the rook can manage these 2 pieces. Of course, the rook is much more nimble than the minor pieces. But if the rook doesn't get in somehow, doesn't have open files to play with, then the rook is a worse piece than 2 minor pieces. So here, Arjun goes e4 because the minor pieces also don't have much potential. Black pawns are really strong. They're limiting the white pieces. Now bishop d takes e4. He'll take with the bishop, I believe. Bishop takes on e4. And Arjun is hoping that this will turn into something for him. But look at Sindarov quickly trading pawns. A very important factor again. And as Arjun, you don't want to be clinging onto your pawn, because then this passer could get dangerous. So he takes on g5. F takes g5. Rook takes on g5. And the knight jumps into d3. So you can see like the pieces well positioned here. Rook jumps to h5. plan is to give a check. King e3. White pieces are well coordinated, but all that white needs is to create a passer. Meanwhile, black does have his own passed pawn. Bishop comes back, and I think rook h2 makes a lot of sense. Yes, rook comes to h2. Pawn to a4 played. And pawn comes up to a5. But now the knight could jump here, potentially put some pressure. b3, yes, first saving these pieces, ready to jump here. Is Arjun making progress? King f6 played. I guess to knight c5 you may have to be very, very careful. He goes knight to e5. Okay. But can we not go rook b2 now to attack here? Maybe Arjun wants to defend with bishop d1. Yes, he does go rook a2. Rook a2 played. Maybe he wants b5 or what? Not so sure. Bishop d1 played. And a nice move here by Sindarov. f4. If king takes f4, then rook d2, attacking the bishop and the pawn. Arjun decides to keep his king near his pawn. King d3. King to g5. The bishop is controlling this pawn. Should we go after the a5 pawn? No, he goes king e4. Arjun is also worried, like if you go here, maybe there is b5, but also maybe the black king comes in. So he tries to keep his king closer to the f4 pawn, but Sindarov now attacks the bishop. You will see that the rook's main task is to keep irritating white pieces, remove their stability. And here rook b1, and I think Arjun has finally found some sort of stability with bishop c4, but it's not a permanent one. Yeah, he goes knight f3 check first. And very important to go back. If you come king g4, knight d2 and you lose the rook, so king f6. And now f4 is hanging, but our b3 pawn is also hanging. He goes knight d2, attacking the rook and defending the pawn. Rook e1 played here, pinning the bishop. King f3, king goes back to e7. Knight to c4, attacks here. Could be a good idea. Let's see if Arjun goes for it. Yes, he plays it. Knight to c4. The bar is in the center. It's equal, but it could go in either direction. I love this move by Sindarov. b5. Firstly, you can take on a5. ab. cb. And knight takes on a5. Yeah. King comes to d6. Sindarov giving up pawns here just to make sure that he is able to get these two pawns on d4. Yes, Arjun takes. So now Arjun has two minor pieces, two pawns against a rook and one pawn. This pawn is also hanging, but Sindarov gets a very important pawn, d4. And I think there's one thing about both Sindarov and Arjun are that they are amazing calculators. So even though this endgame might be very strategic in nature, when you calculate it correctly, you are able to take these decisions of b5 and everything. And now the king is coming here, rook will try to attack, and if we can just get a pawn and a bishop or a knight for the rook, it's a draw. So Sindarov's task is easier. The only way to avoid such a draw is to keep two defenders on this square. But even that might not help, because after rook b1, let's imagine knight here. I can actually take this, right? If you take with the knight, I take the bishop. If you take with the bishop, I attack both. So yeah, it's impossible to hold this. And Sindarov takes on b3. What a game this has been. What a game. Firstly, a huge kudos to Arjun Erigaisi for going all in, attacking. And then for Sindarov, trying to defend, trying to take these very tough decisions, whether to grab a pawn, give up material. And I feel like both of these players really entertained us with their play, with the way in which they fought. And let's hear a bit of their analysis. Arjun, I think, is asking, what if I had played king f2 before h4?